Okay, I'm going to let our caller in, and I've got an 817 area code. Caller, your first name and what state are you calling from?
Good morning. I'm calling from Fort Worth, Tarrant County. This is Vineet Mansukani, your friend.
Oh, Valit, good to hear from you. What do you think about what's going on in Texas, Valit?
This is finally the exposing of the greatest insanity that mankind has ever seen. This is a tip of the iceberg which shows the biggest psychological holocaust the world has ever seen. It puts the Nazis to shame. The Nazis look like what they did was child's play compared to what's been going on.
You know, the Nazis experimented with twins, and this is a twin boy. You know that, right?
Yes.
Valette, do you have a question for our guest? Jeff?
I just came in just in the last few minutes, so I just caught a very little bit of it. But this thing is so, what I'm really worried is, the only reason Jeff Younger got what the reprieve was because the global heat on this became so bad. Otherwise, this judge would have simply let the insanity of the jury go on. By the way, 11 out of 12 jurors in conservative Texas ruling that castration, chemical and physical, of a child is just peachy and dandy. That is indicative of how badly what is called the ideological subversion has happened. What is ideological subversion? That is when a society gets so screwed up because they have no frame of reference. They have no morality or spiritual reference left to discern anymore what is right or wrong. And that is what the jury has done. So this should be alarming, and this extends all the way from society into our government and everywhere. The mental health profession is also like that. The jury pool, the jury of our peers has become like that. Everywhere you go, you run into the same thing. So one of the things, for example, the CBS reporters, that were the only ones allowed in the court on the final day, notes that everybody is in order to counseling. That's yet another landmine, because when you run into that, these same kind of jury-type people are going to come out, and James, Jude, and Jeff are going into the same minefield again, the psychological minefield. Can you imagine? I mean, when this happens, the thing that struck me the most was that's being showed everywhere. When Jeff interviews on that Luke Mackay show, and he says, imagine you are a father. You are forced to sit on the sidelines day after day and see your child abused in such a horrific fashion day after day, and you cannot even say anything. The moment you even break your calmness, you will be accused of being a violent, abusive person.
I want you to imagine having electronic communication with your son on FaceTime. And imagine that your ex-wife has dressed him as a drag queen to talk to you. He has false eyelashes and makeup. His hair's got glitter in it. He's wearing a dress. Now, imagine how you would feel seeing what I believe is actual sexual abuse. I believe this is not just emotional abuse, but is the very most fundamental form of sexual abuse, tampering with the sexual identity of a vulnerable boy. Every single day, you have to see your son sexually abused, and you have to maintain your calm. You have to be the one who's calm, because the courts are not going to be fair to you. And the only way you can survive this and get your son through this alive is to calmly allow your son to be tortured right before your eyes and outlast the opposition. That's what it's like.
This is what it boils down.
Valette, thank you very much for the call.
Some of those things, Vineet has raised so many very good points here.
Go ahead.
This could go on and on for hours, I'm sure. But, when he did talk about, what Vineet is talking about, as I understand it, is the abuse that is taking place from an ideological perspective. And what I think about this case, DJ, is that when you have a mother who is taking steps to transition a son, supposedly transition a son, who still identifies as a boy, the images of the experiment that took place in Auschwitz under Dr. Joseph Mengele, or Mengele, whatever his name is,
Mengele.
They came to mind very much. One of the expert witnesses actually said this is an ideological propaganda, and that that anything that should be done, if it is done, only under the strictest of clinical conditions with the strictest of safeguards. But what he was also saying at the same time, he wasn't saying let this go forward. He said nothing at age 8 should be done. Nothing. If you have a person maybe in their 20s, I don't know, maybe you could make the case, but what the experts were saying is that 90% of these people who go through this some type of identity confusion when they're young, by the time they come out of adolescence, they have completely reconciled who they are. That this identity confusion at times is part of life for some people. But if you have 90% of these people that are completely reconciled after adolescence, let that take place. And for the other 10%, give them psychological counseling. This is a psychological issue. Biology does not lie. James is an XY chromosome person. XY is male. He is male. There's nothing that can change about that. His legal name is James. The made-up fictional name that his mother gave him was Luna, which was, by the way, against all court orders. But when you look at what's going on with this issue with this possible transition taking place, this is so egregious that it shocked the conscience of a nation. And but the problem is this: why do we have to wait till something so egregious shocks our conscience? This type of abuse and this type of destruction is taking place on a daily basis in our courts in the state of Texas, and not just every now and then. When I say daily, I mean multiple times daily. Divorce is abuse. I was coming back from the Values Voter Summit 2 weeks ago on an airplane, and I'm watching this one father holding his little baby, about 2-3 months old. And the picture that I got was, here's this baby just clinging to his father. And you see the same thing happening when babies cling to their mother. That's what they know. That's their security. This is my mommy. This is my daddy. And for these courts to permit divorce on demand and separate these kids from their parents and then give court orders like what took place for Mr. Younger. Mr. Younger, you can't cut your son's hair without the permission of the amicus attorney. Mr. Younger, you cannot even call your son James in public, nor can you refer to him as a boy. What kind of nonsense is this? And how abusive is this? When you go back to what took place, so you've got to go back again to the root cause. This forced divorce on demand, the same thing that Vladimir Lenin instituted in Bolshevik Russia, that is our law. What we are seeing is the extreme, the natural outworking of it. But it's happening in so many other ways, daily, consistently, and we have to get, I'm glad that the outrage was raised about what's happened with this with Save James, but our outrage needs to be raised against all these other issues that are going on. How abusive it is to take a child who loves his mother or father and tell that child, you have no rights and say in whether your parents stay together. And the state will always take the side, without exception, of the person who wants to leave a marriage and destroy a family. That is abusive. And this transgender thing is just the natural outcome, outworking of it.